And while Trump was amplifying that dangerous conspiracy theory, the Justice Department was preparing its latest response in its investigation into the former president. Several major headlines are emerging from the DOJ's midnight filing in response to Donald Trump's request for an independent review of all the materials, known as a special master, following the search of Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. The DOJ argues that appointing a special master, quote, is unnecessary and would significantly harm important governmental interests, including national security interests. The DOJ points out government review teams have already finished their work, and a third party reviewing the documents would only impede its ongoing criminal investigation. The 36-page filing also reveals the Justice Department sought a search warrant for Mar-a-Lago after obtaining evidence that highly classified documents were likely moved and hidden, and that Trump's representatives had falsely claimed all sensitive material had already been returned. The DOJ filing states, quote, the government also developed evidence that government records were likely concealed and removed from the storage room, and that efforts were likely taken to obstruct the government's investigation. It goes on to state, quote, 3 classified documents that were not located in boxes, but rather were located in the desks in the, quote, 45 office were also seized. The DOJ also included a picture of the documents seized during the FBI's search of the former president's Florida estate, several of which are clearly marked top secret. In all, the filing says, more than 100 unique classified documents were seized. And some of the documents were so sensitive, FBI agents and DOJ attorneys needed additional security clearances to even review them. The DOJ filing reveals the FBI recovered twice as many classified documents than what was turned over by the Trump team, casting doubt over their claim that there had been a diligent search following the grand jury subpoena in May. Let's bring in former U.S. Senator, now on NBC News and MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill, MSNBC and NBC News national affairs analyst and executive editor of The Recount, John Heilemann, congressional reporter for The Guardian, Hugo Lowell, and professor at Princeton University, Eddie Glaude Jr. And Joe, I mean, there's so much here this morning that obviously was revealed by midnight last night. The papers found in, it appears, the 45 office desk. I don't know if that's Donald Trump's office. 45 office is what it's called. But these papers are clearly highly sensitive. And the revelations overnight are quite stunning.
I don't know. Maybe 45 Office is the Tiki Hut bar at Mar-a-Lago. Who knows?
Yikes. This is frightening.
But, you know, the thing that we just need to keep circling back to that you brought up earlier this morning, Donald Trump has no explanation for this.
He doesn't deny it.
Rudy Giuliani has no explanation for why the most top secret documents that the government holds was stolen from the White House and taken down to Mar-a-Lago. Newt Gingrich, who's attacking law enforcement officers, calling them wolves who want to devour Americans, doesn't have any defense. There is no explanation. There is no defense, at least politically and legally, Jonathan, or John Heilemann. Legally, it seems to me that every day for Donald Trump, they think they're going to do something with this special master. Plead to have a special master, and then they force the DOJ's hand, who says, oh, okay, well, here, you want some evidence why we can't do that? And I'm just reminded of what Julia Yaffe says in her blog, tomorrow will be worse. When it comes to Donald Trump's legal woes, it seems he doesn't really have many moves left. Tomorrow will be worse. Perhaps that's why he and Lindsey Graham are talking about Republican riots in the street, Republican violence in the street. Again, their words, not mine. Their words, not mine. This is not Antifa This is Lindsey Graham saying, if Donald Trump is held accountable for breaking the law, Republicans, his supporters, will riot in the street. So that's what we're left with, because they sure as hell don't seem to have any explanation for why he took these top secret documents.
Yeah, so several things, I think, on this. The first is, Joe, to your point, I mean, the first weekend after the Mar-a-Lago search and seizure operation, it was reported in the New York Times that Trump had reached out to Merrick Garland and said something along the lines of, he wanted to try to cool things down. Could he try to, calm things in the country, because the country was really on fire? And there were people who read that as a veiled threat. And I looked at it and sort of thought that that could be right. That could be a veiled threat. It now seems obvious that it was the precursor to, it was a veiled threat and was a precursor laying down the groundwork for what we're now seeing, which is, these explicit threats that are, kind of almost incomprehensible that someone like Lindsey Graham would say what he said. But I think the main point is that they don't have any legal moves left. I'm not a lawyer, but there's no lawyer I talk to who thinks that the situation isn't going to get worse for them. And I think what that leads to, Joe, is this question of, really, in the end, it still is the question, is what Merrick Garland's going to do. Is he going to indict Donald Trump or not? Now, there was, again, in that early phase, there was some discussion among prosecutors. They would say, well, maybe if he got the classified documents back, he will have served his purpose. They'll no longer be at risk. Maybe he won't go through with it. What we've seen now, having crossed the Rubicon and sent those FBI agents down there to do that search and seizure, having come back and we now know how many documents there were, how long they were there, how much Trump resisted, how high the level of classification was. And now the DOJ has gone to the point where it's laying them out they're laying out on the floor here, and they're putting these photographs out. They're not just sort of spiking the ball on all of Trump's legal team's bad legal interpretations and maneuvers, but they are implicitly or explicitly kind of signaling tipping their hand too. I don't understand a world in which now Merrick Garland could not, in the end, indict Trump. And I think that's where we're headed, and then the Trump people know it. Donald Trump knows it. It's the thing that's causing the panic, the behavior of a guy who seems like he's on has had some bad bathtub mescaline and has kind of lost his mind yesterday. He's panicked and he can see as clearly as everyone else can. He's headed for an indictment. And I think that's becoming increasingly inexorable and inevitable. And that's part of what's driving this degree of freak out on his part on whatever that platform is he uses, isn't that just a QAnon platform? Isn't that all that is?
Yeah,
True Social? Isn't that Q Social? Isn't that what they call it?
I don't know what that is any more than I know what bad bathtub mescaline is. But I'll leave that right there.
Come on over on Saturday afternoon, Joe. I'm going to have a barbecue. If you want to come by, I can make you familiar with the substance in question.
No. I'm very good with sweet tea. I'm telling you, that's I've cut the amount of sugar that is poured into the sweet tea jug in half.
There's too much caffeine for you.
And then I'm trying to cut it down to a quarter, right? So that's how dangerous I live with foreign substances. So Willie, we had Admiral Stavridis rightly say, if Donald Trump gets away with stealing documents from government facilities that are supposed to be only held and seen in government facilities, what precedent does that set for the handling? Everybody else that's handling these documents every day, and Admiral Stavridis talked about, you get these things, briefing books with the top secret documents, and you would hold them closely. If he even tore, and he's so right. That's what I've been saying about Congress. If I tore something out and said, I want to take a closer look at this at home, I would get a knock on my apartment door in Washington, D.C., and be cuffed. Like, even one document. So you've got that precedent. And then you've got the precedent on obstruction of justice. So how does Merrick Garland, how does the DOJ, how do government lawyers say, you know what, we're just going to let this one slide because the DOJ asked the former president to return top secret documents, to return classified documents, to return secret documents, and he only gave us like half back. And they've got them concealing the documents. They got them hiding the documents. They've got them moving the documents to other rooms to obstruct justice. So I've always been against the prosecution of past administrations because I think it would set a dangerous precedent. But I'm afraid we're at a point now where not doing anything would set a far greater precedent that is far more dangerous and far-reaching in the future.
And with every new filing from the Department of Justice, they reveal more and more of what they have, and it appears more and more likely that they are prepared, perhaps, to indict the former president based on what we've seen even publicly. We don't even know the breadth of what they have privately as they're building their case. And Claire McCaskill, the reason you haven't heard a good explanation for what the former president and his team did is because there isn't a good explanation. They're caught red-handed with boxes and boxes full of classified documents, some of them top secret, as we saw in that photograph last night, stashed away at a country club in Florida. Joe's right. Admiral Stavridis came in and sat down with Jonathan and I and said, I'm here to talk about Gorbachev, but do you know what would happen as the supreme commander of NATO if I had a single document? There'd be a knock on my door and I'd say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And they'd throw me in handcuffs. Doesn't matter if you meant to do it. So there is no good explanation here. And as we learned more from this filing last night, 36 pages, the Justice Department certainly has a whole lot on this former president.